Welcome back to another episode of the SEO Weekly, where queries are weird, advice is controversial, and everything depends. I'm your host, Garrett Sussman of iPullrank, and every week I cover everything that's going on in the world of SEO. We're talking Google announcements, blog posts, new strategies, new tools, webinars, podcasts, communities, SEO, Twitter, you name it, I'm on it. If you are into this stuff, then please subscribe to our YouTube channel, give us a like, share on the socials. I definitely appreciate it. Lots of fun things going on this week, including a renaming, retirement, whatever you want to call it, of Webmaster Guidelines. What is it now? Oh, entity SEO, semantic SEO. Is it different? Is it the same? Is it semantics? And SEO attribution, there's a lot of nuance to it, and yet it is not 100% solid. We've got some interesting takes and some interesting resources covering it. Let's dive in. Okay, so first on the docket in Google News, Webmaster Guidelines, the resource for the past literally 20 years for what Google recommends for like best practices and technical requirements and all that jazz. Well, it's going through a refresh. They are retiring the term Webmaster Guidelines because honestly, not a lot of people identify that. I remember back in the day looking at that term and just imagining like some IT dude surrounded by 15 monitors, like drinking a lot of Mountain Dew. I didn't think that was me. Anyway, way overdue for a refresh. And frankly, the Google search team has been transparent that they've been trying to update and improve the documentation and the resources of Google Search Central. They've been doing it for the past couple of years now, and it is getting a lot better. Now, don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of problems in terms of how frequently update, which will be covered in our brand new video series, SEO Battlezone. But Webmaster Guidelines, no more. Google Search Essentials. That's the new name. That's what they're calling it. It's a simple refresh. Basically, most of the content is still the same. It's divided into like 3 different sections in terms of, technical aspects, spam policies, and then key best practices. So technical being along the lines of, making sure that Google bot's not blocked, making sure that your website's actually working, and then making sure that the content can actually be indexed. They have improved the spam policies, with all sorts of like deceptive behavior with concrete examples, which I think is super useful. It's better to get a sense of what is appropriate and what's not when you see actual examples that you can point to. And then key best practices, taking into consideration a lot like the helpful content update, focusing on the user as opposed to search engines, just producing great content that's helpful, that's easy to understand, that makes your links crawlable. All in all, a good refresh, even if it's not like the most ground-shaking development in the world of Google, especially after the last few months. But I appreciate them putting in the effort. So no longer Webmaster Guidelines, now Google Search Essentials. In other Google news that's somewhat SEO adjacent, Google Data Studio, which we know and love to report on SEO performance, has been rebranded as Looker Studio. Now, if you remember, Google actually bought Looker business intelligence tool back in 2020. Now they're bringing everything under the Looker brand. You can already see the logo in Looker Studio, say Google Data Studio, but basically providing more opportunities to use data models and business intelligence in your Data Studio, Looker Studio visualization. So there's a lot of potential there. They had a couple of really cool examples, including like NBA MVP voter sharing, or where is the International Space Station at and how you can visualize that. So there's a lot of potential to more effectively visualize your SEO data, especially in an integrated marketing capacity of how it might relate to some of the other channels that you're using. So something to think about, keep an eye on there, but obviously they're investing significantly into this data visualization product. Google is getting really smart, right? They understand semantics, linguistics, the meaning of words based on the relationship. If you move certain words around in a search term, it has a completely different meaning, right? It also understands the idea of entities as it's building out the knowledge graph. It understands all of these different things and concepts and the attributes that define them and the relationships between two, right? So we have this like semantic SEO and we have this entity SEO, and guess what? They're basically the same thing, just said slightly differently. In essence, semantics. We've got two really interesting articles that dive into these, calling them semantic SEO and entity SEO, that I think are absolutely worth reading. So first off, you have Claire Brain writing on Moz, all about this idea of how to apply semantic SEO to different niches, right? Niches, I'm sorry. Niches, how do you say it? That's a whole different category. Meanwhile, you've got Genie Jones on Inlinks writing an article all about why is no one talking about entity SEO. So first off, Claire's article about semantic SEO. She explains what it is, what I just said in terms of linguistics and meaning, and then how you can apply it to things like e-commerce or DIY sites. And in essence, focus on topic modeling, becoming the topical authority by understanding the gaps, the words that are showing up, the concepts, the deep dives into all the aspects of your specific topic, identifying those gaps and creating articles, and then linking between them, using internal linking to show the relationship between all of these different concepts in a way that Google understands. She also talks about the idea of structuring your content and using schema and making things as clear and obvious and relationship-based as possible for these different types of categories, these niches. And one thing I love about the article is she shows these examples, like in e-commerce, how you should use, your category pages, or in DIY, how you should use FAQs effectively. So a lot of good ideas to pull from that article. Meanwhile, Genie Jones is talking all about how she went to Brighton SEO, and people are talking about it, but they're not necessarily calling it entity SEO. Well, in her article, one thing that I thought was a really cool takeaway is how you can use schema to say to Google, yo, I am talking about these entities, literally saying the type, it's a thing, and this is using Wikipedia's data set, a tool in her example, for instance, or, how this is about the Labor Party. And then it mentions marketing and publishing. You can see it in the schema. You can use schema to let Google know. And as Google moves forward as this kind of entity-focused, concept-focused search engine, you are more likely to show up for the topics that you need to show up for based on the content. So two really interesting articles. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that at the end of the month, we finally did reschedule our, you don't know entity SEO webinar with our own Michael King from iPullrank, Ruth Burr-Reedy, and Cindy Crum from Upbuild and Mobile Moxie, respectively. It's going to be awesome. It's going to go into that entity SEO and how to actually implement it and realize whether if Google understands your website and the entity that it is. It's going to be awesome. The registration link is down in the description notes, but check out these articles by Claire and Genie about semantic SEO and entity SEO, because it's interesting and it's important to know the difference, because that's the direction that Google is already going in. Technology is wonderful. It allows us to do so many things. And in the world of marketing that's been around for over 100 years now, we have been privileged with this peak moment, maybe like 3, 4, 5 years ago, where we could track so much performance. We could know if you were doing something and you came to our website and you made a purchase, that it was because of an advertisement or, a blog post or whatever. Now, it's never been perfect, but before a lot of privacy rules were implemented, it was much easier to be able to track and attribute, and marketers would plan their strategy around those different channels and then do their best to track and attribute the performance of their marketing efforts, because ultimately you want to be able to show that the work that you're doing is valuable. Well, it's become harder. People are frustrated. There's lots of arguments on LinkedIn and Twitter all about attribution. And Fishkin of Sparktoro decided to write a blog post talking about why it's so freaking hard to measure these marketing investments and why that shouldn't necessarily stop you from different types of channels, whether that's like podcasts or co-marketing and guest posts and all these different opportunities and ways to get your voice and your brand out there to drive people down the funnel. So he breaks it down. He talks about the different types of marketing tactics and channels and why they might be hard to track. He puts it in the context of the funnel, because for any of us who think about the buyer's journey, which a lot of us do, even if it's really messy and it's not linear, we still have these ideas of awareness, like the top of the funnel and brand interest, the middle of the funnel and website traffic, and the bottom of the funnel and ultimately getting that conversion. Well, Ram breaks it down. He says that, you should consider there are ways to kind of think about these different things and your initiatives, but ultimately you should go with your gut and use data almost directionally, to kind of point you in the right direction, that you're seeing positive improvements around those core metrics. So it's a really great article. Whenever Ram puts something out, it's definitely worth reading because his insights and the way he thinks about marketing make a ton of sense. Meanwhile, somewhat related specifically to SEO, and obviously SEO plays into a lot of what Ram was talking about in the buyer's journey. Well, Tory Gray and Sam Torres of the Gray Company put together a really great deep dive into the specific metrics that you want to track for SEO purposes at different points of the funnel. So they reached out to a bunch of different, like, really smart SEOs to give their ideas and their thoughts on it, whether it's like Arija Bouali or Jess Joyce or Darwin Santos. Really great insights. So they go all the way from like awareness to intent to consideration to purchase, even all the way down to like loyalty and advocacy. And they break down the metrics for each of those stages for SEO. So for instance, like the brand awareness stage, you're going to want to think about like your impressions, your rankings, share of voice, visibility, non-branded searches. Naturally, with anything, it always depends on your type of business and what your goals are, but you want to think about it critically and what metrics make sense depending on that part of the buyer's journey. Then they talk about like different ways that you can actually grow those channels, like brand awareness with SEO, and then they dive into the interest stage, et cetera, et cetera. It's cool. It's comprehensive. They talk about like stakeholders who care about specific parts of the funnel and how to work with them. Read that article. Super impressed with that, and a lot of great contributors from SEOs who really know what they're talking about. So when it comes to attribution between Rand's article and the Gray Company article, great insights for SEO and getting some credit, and when it's hard and when it's not. Check them out. So on the iPullrank blog, we got a little bit niche, second time in the same episode. While we're talking about the financial services industry, specifically how financial institutions can really drive organic growth on your money, your life queries with authoritative content. So, if you're a bank, if you're doing financial services, it's cutthroat, but Google takes those super seriously. And in fact, in the Google Rater Guidelines, they have specific pages and like guidelines in terms of how to figure out if a query or a page is considered a your money, your life, there would be serious consequences if they messed up the results type of thing. So in this, Andrew McDermott kind of goes through like how to apply it to local search or just to organic search with different types of search intents, whether it's, informational or transactional or commercial, all that jazz. He gives great examples of actual queries and how to think about the different types of keywords and then the content that you want to use to support that. So if you or someone works for a bank, works in a bank, does digital marketing SEO for a bank, this is an article you're going to want to check out. I love positive, supportive initiatives in our industry, as you saw with people supporting SEO as well. Kudos to Hannah Butcher, of Resignal. She put out an article all about the changemakers of SEO. So these are folks who are really fighting for diversity and inclusivity in our industry. So she called out 5 people who have just been awesome, who have been changemakers, who have been putting in the work, walking the walk. Arij Abwali for women in tech SEO, Chloe Smith for inclusivity and diversity advocates, like with Blue Array. She talked about Shima Meje doing the freelance coalition for developing countries. Azim Ahmad, who has I Am Azim, his digital podcast, which is awesome. So many good podcast episodes, but he also talks about D&I in like any sort of conference. He's given a lot of speeches there. And then Rejoice Ojiaku, who does Be Digital UK, kind of including the BIPOC of the SEO industry and getting opportunities for people of color and Black and Indigenous. It's freaking awesome, all of these folks. And I like the article by Hannah. Thank you so much for putting that together. Good work. SEO salaries. It's a complicated topic, and I give Mark Preston, a UK SEO consultant, a ton of credit for an epic long post he put together all about the shocking truth about SEO salaries. He includes a UK marketing salary checker. He's from the UK himself, but breaks it down between different types of SEO roles, the different expectations of countries, the cost of living in different countries, the different rules around taxation. He asked a bunch of experts in the industry and why it's so complicated that you see the US SEO salaries being so high and, in India being so low and UK being much on the lower end, and people calling that out, and why companies are not transparent about their salaries, and how the pandemic has changed everything with remote work. Well, Mark goes through it all, and there is no easy answer. It's a giant it depends, but ultimately he argues that most SEOs, especially in the UK, are being underpaid. While it's going up, it's still not there yet. Even in the US, one thing that we have to take into consideration is the massive inflation that we're seeing, and the salary doesn't go as far as it used to a year, 10 years, 20 years ago. SEO is such an important industry, and it's so valuable to businesses and growth. I don't know why you wouldn't, invest more in it. But if you are curious about the big SEO salaries debate, you have a strong opinion one way or the other, definitely read Mark's article. It is fascinating. Onto a bit of technical SEO. In the Core Web Vitals section of the Web.dev site that provides a lot of insights into Core Web Vitals and how to speed up your website and the metrics that we track for Core Web Vitals in terms of page speed, a really cool in-depth article by Katie Hempenius and Barry Pollard talking all about best practices for fonts. If you're using different fonts, the technology is there to allow you to get really creative, but there is a tech debt toll on the speed of your website if you're not doing it properly. So in terms of font loading, they go deep in terms of all the technical aspects. I don't want to go too far into it because some of it is beyond my technical expertise, but talking about font face and, fallback fonts and inline font declarations and what some of those best practices are to ensure that your website is as fast as possible while wanting it to be stylistically gorgeous. So check out that article. A lot of insights, a lot of code, a lot of technical there, but it really is great in terms of speeding up your website from the use of your fonts. And finally, in the world of iPullrank, really fun Rankable podcast interview last week with Michaela Mendes of General Assembly. So she's the senior director of integrated marketing there, and integrated marketing is a really interesting marketing responsibility because you are basically directing and in charge of all of these different channels and making sure that the brand story, the messaging co-mingles. And so you can kind of drive business revenue and growth across the different channels. We talked all about it, talk all about branding, SEO, PPC, even email. Michaela had a lot of really great insights. So definitely check out that interview of Rankable from last week. And I am hyped. I am hyped. We launched on Friday a brand new series, which is ridiculous, but I got a chance to play referee for SEO Battlezone. Basically, Michael King, founder and CEO of iPullrank, Zach Chahalis, director of SEO at iPullrank, share their takes, their hot, not even hot takes, they're just getting real, pulling no punches in terms of a variety of different topics in the world of SEO. First week, first round, if you will, we covered Google discovery. Like, is Google going in the right direction? Should they be a TikTok competitor? I think it's hilarious. I think it's interesting. You should definitely check it out. We'll be coming with new rounds every week. Should be for a good time. And then if you did miss my webinar on the future of SEO with Zach that we did with SerpStat last week, you can still catch the replay. So much fun. Talked about, the direction of SEO in terms of how we search, using gestures and voice search and visual search and the platforms that we're going to use, whether it is TikTok or something completely new. And then, my all-time favorite science fiction futuristic movies and how they represented search. What was my favorite? Probably Her. You remember with Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson, they had the voice assistant. What was yours? Did you have a favorite movie that represented search? My like hilarious favorite was Demolition Man in 1993. They had kiosks. They couldn't understand the concept of, like, I guess, glasses or phones or the way that we carry search with us. So you had to go to a kiosk. Anyway, that's it. Another episode of the SEO Weekly. I hope you enjoyed it. It's so much fun for me to tell you all about the stuff that's going on in our industry. As always, if you enjoyed this, please subscribe to the channel, give me a like, leave me a comment, let me know if you are feeling it, what you want to see. Thanks again for listening. My name is Garrett of iPullrank, and I will catch you next week. Peace out.